breath, Skif hacked his two bits of rock together, trying to generate sparks, hoping one of them would land in the tiny patch of lint and fluff. When one finally did, and finally cooperated with his efforts, he coaxed it into a tiny flame, then got the flame to take hold of the driest of the wood. He nursed it tenderly, sheltering it from the drafts along the floor, begging it to take. Finally he set it on the sooty hearth, surrounded it with what was left of the dry wood from last night, and slowly fed it until it was large enough to actually cook over. Only when the kitchen fire was properly started did the slattern used by Uncle Launder as a cook, dishwasher, and general dog's body finally shuffle down the stairs from the loft where she slept into the room, scratching head and buttocks at the same time, without ever dislodging any of the vermin who called her home. Skif often wondered why so few people who ate here died. Perhaps it was only because their stomachs were already full of the acidic potions his uncle sold as wine and beer, and once a stomach was full of that rot gut, nothing that came in from the food lived long enough to cause sickness. The kitchen door stood open to the cold courtyard. Kalchan came in that way every morning, bringing the day's supplies. Uncle Launder never bought more of anything for the inn than he absolutely had to. Now Skif braced himself to head outside into the cold. "Where'd it hurt if he bought for a week? Wouldn't he get it cheaper that way?" Skif ran out into the courtyard to unload the wagon, hired for the purpose by the Candlemark, together with a boy to drive it. The quicker Skif unloaded the thing, the less Uncle Launder would be charged, and if he didn't save Uncle Launder every possible penny bit, he'd learn about it when Kalchan's fist connected with his head. The boy stared at the ears of his donkey, studiously ignoring Skif, who was so much lower in the social scale than he was. This boy had a coat, new boots, both clean. "Oh, stuck up," Skif thought, and stuck out his tongue at the unresponsive back. First off, a half-sack of flour, followed by a tub of tallow grease thriftily saved from cook-shops where they skimmed off the grease from roasting and frying, and resold to those who could not afford butter and candles. Maisie would be put to taking peeled rushes and dipping them in the melted grease to make the tallow dips that served the tavern as lights, and the cook would use the same grease in baking and on the bread. Skif moved it carefully and set it down beside the flour. Sometimes the stuff was still liquid underneath, and he didn't dare spill it. Then came a bucket of meat scraps, which would serve for the soup and meat pies. "I don't want to know what that meat came from. Reckon it might meow." Next, a peck of withered, spotty turnips, another of dried beans and peas that were past their best and smelled of mold. Last of all, 2 barrels of beer and 1 of wine. Both represented the collected dregs from barrels all over the city, collected last night from one of the large merchants who supplied goods to other inns and taverns. Needless to say, this was the cheapest conceivable form of beverage. It even cost less than the sweet spring water collected from outside Haven. It was so awful that guild cooks wouldn't even use the stuff in sauces. Stale and loaded with sediment, it smelled sour even through the wood of the barrel. Skif got the barrels off the wagon quickly, and the boy turned the wagon just as quickly and sent his donkey trotting out into the street. Skif lugged the food into the kitchen, where old Moll, the cook, took charge of it all. Only she or Kalchan were allowed to touch the food and drink once it came off the wagon. Skif had no intention of touching any of it. He never ate here. Not that Uncle Launder encouraged him to. He wasn't done yet. He had to bring in enough water from the courtyard pump to fill the half-barrel in the kitchen, 1 bucket at a time. He stumbled on the rutted, frozen dirt of the courtyard. His boots, stuffed with straw for extra warmth, were far too big for him. He didn't care. Better too big than too small. Leastwise they don't pinch. Now Skif went out into the common room to ready it for the first customers, lighting the fire there with a brand from the kitchen fire, arranging bits of wood on either side of the hearth to dry, taking the benches down off the tables and the shutters off the windows. The oiled paper in the windows didn't do a great deal to keep out the cold, but with snow in the street outside there was some light getting in this morning, so it was